Max Inc. Radio for the people. Mojo Radio there. That is Bone Shaker, Bastard Den. Scott and Jason are hanging out in the Bastard Den right now. What's up, gentlemen? Welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, man. Also, welcome back to E-Dub. He's back in the Bastard Den now.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Guys, bear with me for 1 second. So what was going on down there?
Well, when I got there, nothing was happening yet. Things didn't really start up until about 7:20 or so. And there was a lady leading the meeting, just letting people voice their concerns, their support, all that kind of stuff.
So there wasn't the mob of people that the Facebook promised that there would be, right?
Well, it could have turned into a mob. I could have made that happen.
Yeah.
But it was not at that point a mob, no.
Has Mojo Radio ever inspired mobs? And
I don't know if a mob.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Someday we should do a Bastard Den flash mob.
Oh, that would be fun. Yeah.
Right. We encourage choreography at our shows, actually.
As much as we can, yes.
Right.
Black tights preferred.
Black tights make you look skinnier, you know?
That's right.
Yeah, it's the girl's best friend.
We're all getting older, so we need all the help we can.
So for those of you new to the Bastard Den and may not know this, but Mojo Radio is relatively a new name for you guys. He used to be known as Soul Shaker here in Madison. And unfortunately, I guess somebody had rights to Soul Shakers. So you had to change your name to Mojo Radio. What happened there, man?
Yeah, honestly, I think he was just pissed that, if you Googled Soul Shaker, it would be us that would come up first, and then I think he was the third page. So for him actually owning the copyright, I can understand that. And actually, the funny part of it is that when we started looking at the copyright process of it, it was because there was actually another Soul Shaker that was in Kenosha. So I wanted to put the copyright on it. So as luck would have it, just as I was getting ready to actually file that with the Federal Trademark Commission, we got hit with a C&D letter. So,
cease and desist,
and the rest was history. And honestly, it was a blessing in disguise.
Well, I'll get back to that in just 1 second, but as far as, was he looking for you guys to stop using Soul Shaker completely, or was he looking to make a buck on this?
The way it read was he was looking to make a buck on it, and we just weren't going to play that game. The other fact of it is that literally there's like at least 10 Soul Shakers in every state across the nation. So it was kind of one of those things where it's like, well, either we've got to copyright it, which really doesn't protect you unless you want to spend the money to legally go after this and enforce it. It was just why put the money into it and why spend that kind of money? It wasn't worth it. So
the blessing in disguise is that now you have a name, Mojo Radio. First of all, where'd you find that name at, man?
I think when we were served the papers from this guy in Austin that had Soul Shaker, he gave us 60 days to stop using the name, which was pretty nice because then it wasn't just abruptly, now you're a new name,
right?
Because we really didn't have a name for like a month or more because we're like, how about? And we came up like Jason would say a name and I'd say Google it because there's already 10 bands of that name too, and then we'd all kind of pool up a bunch of names and it's really hard to find an original name.
And it is to a point because the other part is just the emotional connection to that being our name for 2.5 years. So it's like anything that comes your way, you hate it.
And not to mention, what you were saying off air. How many names? The Onion article. There were only 4 or 5 band names.
There's only seven original remaining band names.
That might be the only Onion article that is actually
4.
Factual.
Correct.
And accurate and
Yes.
It's funny you bring that up because there was a time where we were contemplating changing the name of the Bastard Den, thinking about making it more family friendly, if you will.
Right.
And it was the same thing. We came up with names all over the place, and Jim would like one, and I'd go, and I'd come up with one. I don't think so. It was impossible. We were never going to change it. So we didn't.
And plus we're bastards,
Correct. And
it's perfect.
You can never be fully happy. And Brent had actually, our drummer, had actually come up with Mojo Radio. We knew we wanted to stay with 2 words. We knew we wanted to keep the Crimson Indian, and we wanted that look. So we'd kind of gone through blues culture, and it's like, well, let's look at all these, words that are usually attributed to like rock and roll, blues, and as cliche as it is, Brent came up with it, and we were really kind of weary about the radio part of the name as well. And now looking back on it, it's kind of like, well, it's worked out, and it's short and simple, and people remember it. So,
do you guys feel like you own it now, like you did Soul Shaker?
yes.
I think
that's it.
I think overall, we all enjoy the name probably more than we enjoyed Soul Shaker. I know some of us, like Adam specifically, when he joined the band, said like, how attached are you guys to the Soul Shaker name? Because he didn't really like it.
Okay.
But he once you get into it, it was like, I like it.
Correct.
So he actually was a little bit happy to know that we have to change the name anyways, because he never really loved it.
Right.
But
No,
Do you ever think maybe he was the one that sent the papers?
maybe, you never know.
that Adam guy, you got to watch out for him, man. Well, I like it. I mean, Mojo, you guys you guys definitely have the mojo when you're on stage. You can hear the mojo in the record when you're listening to it or the CD. Listen to me. I feel like some 70s guy. But anyway, it's Mojo, man. It's good. Mojo Radio.
That's the other thing about it is people can just say, hey, man, we're going down to the bar to see Mojo.
Right.
Who are they talking about? They're talking about Mojo Radio.
Yeah.
You Hope or a bar in Wanakee, one of the two.
Well, you wouldn't go to the bar to see the bar. Maybe you would. I don't know. That'd be kind of weird.
So you guys have a new CD out. You actually just had a CD listening party at the Glass Nickel.
Correct.
That looked like a lot of fun. I somehow or another I missed that invite. I apologize. But I was busy that night anyway. I had my mojo working that
There
night.
you go. It's Sunday night.
Tell us about the listening party and just having a listening party. You know, a lot of bands have CD release parties. You guys actually had a listening party where you invite people to the place to listen to the CD.
Correct.
Yeah, that was kind of we kind of had to do something because we have a CD here, and we didn't actually have really any gigs booked for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were trying to figure out, like, well, we can't just make a show and, throw records at people. So it's kind of like, how do we make it more intimate?
Correct.
And,
And we didn't just want to do a show to kind of do it. It's like, we will do our CD release party, and we want to do that right as a band and do that performance right as well, and invite some of our favorite bands to play with as well. So that's why we were kind of like, well, let's do a listening party. Let's keep it low key. If we even get 10 people there, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I think it was received really well, and it was just great to see the outpouring of people just coming to buy the record. That was the coolest thing, is like people actually want to buy the record.
Right.
So,
Well, I think you guys have a certain what can I say? Well, you obviously have a following, and it's a good following. When I know there's been times when I've talked about you guys, and anyone who is aware of your work is just all about it. I never hear anybody going, "Oh, they're okay" or anything.
Oh, good.
That kind of reminded me of a question I wanted to ask you. I mean, going back to the name change, I guess. How was it with the transition with your fans? What was the feedback from your fans with the whole name change? And was it hard to to take the Soul Shakers and make a Mojo Radio?
I think, we had, once again, a lot of support, and a lot of people were like, F that, and blah, blah, blah. So I think a lot of people understood, and I think we also approached it from a standpoint like, look, here's the deal. We've got to switch the name. This is what we're going to do, and just kind of embrace it. So, I think everyone was behind it and understood it for what it was, and everyone's been great about it. So.
A lot.
Makes me think you were saying about how 10 different Soul Shakers probably in each state. That'd be 500 Soul Shakers. That dude had a lot of legal work on his hands.
Correct.
Yeah, he totally did. And if he's starting with us, he's going to spend the next years, going after people.
He's a bastard.
But, like I said, making that joke, literally you would go on Google and go Soul Shaker, and it would be us for the first 3 pages.
Yeah.
And if you understand how Google works, that's just a lot of internet traffic going to our site.
Right.
So that's why he went after us. And then you
Sure.
start seeing names like Bunny Carlos, and you start seeing all this other stuff attached to the band. It's like, well, I'm going to go pick on them because I could probably get something from them. And
Right.
I don't come from that school. It's like, if you back me into a corner, I'm going to punch back.
Right.
So,
Right. All right. The new CD is awesome. I haven't had the chance to listen to it from front to back, but I've heard some stuff that you had posted up online. Of course, the songs you sent to me earlier. Awesome stuff. It really, I love the blues rock and roll, and that's what Mojo Radio is all about
Correct.
here. Tell us about the recording of the CD. I know some of the songs were carried over from Soul Shaker that are on this album here, but there's also some new material on here too, right?
Correct, and that's really a culmination of what the band has done over the last 2 years. Correct? Wouldn't you say it's about 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah.
Whenever Adam kind of joined us, and Brent and Scotty and I have been playing the music together now for 6 years.
That's probably right.
I would say, as a threesome, and then once Adam joined us, going back to 2008, so 4 years. You're talking 4 years of kind of being in the trenches together, getting used together, and learning how to play together as a band.
As original members of the band, Mojo Radio, I mean, is it satisfying, even kind of a relief? Finally, we got this stuff on a CD. We have something that, with our fingerprints on it, and our blood, sweat, and tears are into it,
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I know Brent has a kind of a saying, like, I want to get these recorded so that they're done. Because you keep changing it till you basically have it recorded. Or at least he does. And I kind of feel the same way. You kind of keep messing with it. Like, it's not finalized until it's like in a physical form.
Correct. And that's the way I look at this record. Is it really just captures what we've done over the last 3.5 years as a band, what you can come to expect from us live. Because I really think that record captures what we do live, and that we're also ending this chapter of the band as well. So a big part of that's Soul Shaker, and a big part of it's going to be Mojo Radio in the next chapter with where we decide to go.
Talk about working with Mark Whitcomb as an engineer producer on this album.
He is probably like the fifth member in a way of the band, because he knows what we're about. Maybe the first time when we went in there, he didn't really know. That was 2 years ago. I mean, like when we first went in there, he probably didn't know exactly what we're going for, but he really knows what we're going for now.
And we all work differently as individuals. When we go in and we record, generally we'll set it up where it's 3 days, and we as a band track together as a band. The old school way of it, to try and keep that energy and that feel. So you're going to feel it pulsate, you're going to feel it drag in certain spots.
Right.
And I think Whit probably enjoyed recording in that way. In some aspects, it's a little bit more difficult.
Now, explain that. Are you guys playing all at the same time? Or are you playing tracks down individually, just kind of sharing?
We do not play the Pro Tools game in terms of how recording is done these days.
Analog? Got the old tape there?
We drop everything down to 2-inch tape, and we track the initial rhythm tracks with the scratch vocal, which you will hear on that record. We kept certain scratch vocals because they just sounded better. But we track as a band, we drop it to 2-inch tape, and then from there we drop it into the Pro Tools and edit from there. But pretty much everything is recorded and tracked as a band in a room together.
So is that a more painstaking method?
No, I think it represents the band and it keeps the energy up. Which when we were meeting with Money, that was his big thing was, when you go in and do it, your songs are there, but it's how you guys get that performance across. And I think recording that way helps you because you can feed off one another. You can actually watch it and you can go, okay, Jason's playing this, so I'm going to play this drum fill harder, or I'm going to ride this bass part. So when you're actually in a room interacting like we do in rehearsal, I think it just comes across better. That's why those old records were so good.
Makes a lot of sense.
That's awesome. Mojo Radio here in the Bastard Den on Max Inc. Radio, maxincradio.com if you want to come into the chat room. Got a question for Mojo Radio. They'll be hanging out here for a little longer. 414-455-4DEN. That's 455-4336. What's on the calendar for you guys? What's coming up? Any big shows? Or
our next show is Friday, December 2nd. It's going to be at the Regent Street Retreat, which will be interesting because we played there, last year when it was the Annex. So this will be our first time back under the new Regent Street Retreat. But we're kind of excited because it's going to be us, Clovis Mann, who we played a couple shows with them, and I really like those guys a lot. And then also the Soapbox Project.
Okay, sure.
And they're real good too, so that'll be a first time with them. But it's a pretty good lineup,
Yeah, and I dig playing with bands that have their own personal identity and they're kind of doing their own thing. And we've watched the Clovis guys kind of go their way as much as we're going our way. Everyone's kind of doing this rock and blues thing, but everyone's kind of doing it their own way, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's good to have that kind of diversity at a live show
fantastic.
as well.
Yes.
Sometimes it doesn't always work out if you're crossing genres so much, but if you stick within a genre and you've got enough diversity between the bands,
correct.
I think that works out great. You get something for everybody.
Yeah, right.
What's your guys' opinion about the health of the Madison music scene here? I mean, do you like the bands that are coming out of Madison here? Maybe not just exclusively in Madison, but just say Wisconsin here. Any bands that really are catching your eye or your ears right now, going, holy cow, those guys are good?
A lot of it and is probably because, I've been in the trenches for so long, so when I get a night off, I like to spend my night at home type of deal. But I will say some of the coolest bands that we've hung out, whether it be like Mean Tooth Grin or Aaron Williams or Clovis Man or the Steepwater Band, I just like going out and hanging out at those shows and watching those guys doing what they love to do, but they're just generally good human beings.
Right.
And I guess I'm past that point where it's like, oh, they really blow me away. I actually get off just hanging out with them in between things.
We've kind of experienced that ourselves since we've been doing the show for
Absolutely.
a year and a half. Take Subatomic for example. Those guys are just generally nice guys,
yeah.
and they're a joy to hang out with.
Yeah.
And they're a great band.
And
We
they're a
played-
freaking fantastic
we played
band.
a-
Yeah.
The show with them and
Basis
for Radio.
which
and
is fantastic.
we played. We loved that one. That was one of the coolest shows.
Correct.
And I felt like going into it, watching it was Subatomic first, and then Faces for Radio, and I was just like, I don't know how we're gonna
And once-
do this because both bands played awesome that night.
Correct. And once again, you got 3 individual bands, as I would say, at the top of their game.
Yeah.
No doubt.
So you can't ask for a better show. If bands come in prepared and playing at the top of their game, it's going to be a fantastic night depending on how that lineup is. And that was just one of those awesome nights where it's like, we got to make that happen again. If there were more nights like that, I think more people would go out and actually see music.
I think I was at was that the High Noon Saloon?
Correct.
Yeah, I think you were.
I
do
was there.
remember that.
Yeah. I was drinking. I probably don't remember too much.
No, I think because we ended up ending that set with Bring It On Home.
That's right. I remember that.
And
yes.
I'm always amazed when people come up and they're like, man, I just dread when I hear bands try and even mess with Zeppelin. And it's like, that's always the best compliment where it's like you guys can actually pull it off and do it. That was one of those nights where we pulled out some Zeppelin.
Yeah, you did.
You don't want to dump on somebody else's music.
No, not at all.
A little inside joke there.
With
the onion.
Little poke at the AV club.
Oh man, that's funny. Well, that's awesome, guys. Like I said, the CD is awesome. The music's great. You guys were awesome as Soul Shaker. You're even more awesome as Mojo Radio.
Oh, thanks.
And it's so nice to have you back in the Bastard Den here too. And looking forward to going out and seeing you guys again. If we wanted to buy this CD, if somebody out there in Max Inc. Radio Land wanted to get a copy of the CD, how would we do that?
Well, right now it is available at shows, or you could go ahead and Facebook us and just send us a message, and we will figure out how to get your cash and send you a copy of that record. Because trust me, I've sent 2 copies to Russia. There's 2 copies, actually, I think there's 4 copies in Brazil now and 1 in Mexico City.
Really?
It's based off of some of the forum stuff that I've done in our ties with the Steepwater Band. People have just gotten tied into the band, which is really weird when you go to the post office and it's like, wow, I'm shipping records to Russia.
Yeah,
it's
man.
pretty cool. And then we will be doing CD Baby, and then iTunes should be coming up here pretty quick. So
Probably a couple
matter
weeks.
of weeks,
Yeah.
all that stuff should
CD
be up.
Baby is
so,
good.
Yeah.
They do good. Any plans of either later in the winter, summer, spring, doing a tour at all, or?
I think we've talked about it, and we just got to buy a van, and then we would probably go.
Right.
So it's a matter of who wants to actually go to the dealership and get a van, and then we'll quit our day gigs and
There you go.
do this for
Become
real.
professional musicians,
Right.
living on the road.
We're always kind of looking to, obviously, we don't want to just do Madison.
Right.
So we're looking kind of to go a little south, like into Rockford and Chicago area.
There you
and
go.
over into Michigan and some of that things. And once again, the Steepwater Band from out of Chicago is a fantastic band, and those guys have been nothing but great to really give us a foot up in a
Nice.
number of different ways. And same deal. We've kind of bounced around some things with doing a little micro tour to go hit the East Coast, hit Michigan, and we've even dabbled with doing a Southern California thing for 10 days and going into Texas and doing that too. It's just a matter of scheduling in everyone's lives because all of us work 9 to 5s.
Have families.
So we've got
Right.
families and mortgages and everything else. So it's like if we're going to do it, we got to make sure everything else is covered if we do it.
That's right.
So
And you got to have drugs for the van.
correct.
Did I say that? I'm sorry. I didn't mean that.
No, you got to have a van for the drugs.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is.
Right.
Okay.
You need a van made out of drugs. Going back to Cheech and Chong.
Right.
Mojo Radio and the Bastard Den. Guys, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.